welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you the watercolor painting that I did this month for Patreon, and if you end up liking the painting, the link will be in the description for the full process, including the sketching stage and everything I needed to do before I got to the actual painting. So it's all in there, and I've also uploaded a few more tutorials, including a few with gouache, so if you're interested in that, the link will be in the description. Going back to this one, I really love this painting, and it's a little bit different from the other paintings that I usually do as a tutorial. That's because for this one I wanted to use colors from my own little curated palette. Usually when I want to do a tutorial for painting, I'd usually keep it to the most basic, most widely available colors, just so it's easier to replicate. But this time I wanted to also try out some of the colors that I got from Daniel Smith, which after watching a few videos on the brand, I actually think that the ones that I bought, which are Moonglow and Cascade Green, I now think could be in a lot of people's personal palettes. Just because I think they've built up their own reputation for being such good colors. So I used those two. And then I also used some colors from Sennelier, and also I think only one color from Mijello. But the actual colors will be listed in the description for this one as well, including the brand names. One combination that I got from all these different brands that I've used that I really loved was the Quinacridone Violet from Mijello and Lemon Yellow from Sennelier. I really love how those two colors work together, and especially for the shadows on her face, which actually baffled me for a second, and it took me so long to come up with that combination from the palettes that I had. But those two colors together created what I think is the exact color that I wanted when I saw that reference photo. So that is a rare thing. It usually doesn't happen. Most of the time I just go with what came out of the mixes that that I made in trying to get the exact colors that I wanted in my head. But this time those two colors worked together. Just for this reference photo, I just think it was the perfect one, and so I really love that combination. Along with the bright pops of orange and red, which is just a Chinese orange and a bright red from Sennelier, which again, I just think that that brand, out of all the watercolors I have, is the most reliable. Not that I have only a couple colors from Daniel Smith, and as a side note, I know that different colors will react in a different way, but I've seen this in reviews, and that Sennelier is just very predictable in how it reacts. And I think a lot of artists, especially watercolor artists, once you've mastered the medium and you've sort of worked with it so much, I think that they find more pleasure in watercolors that move and react to water in their own way. I really don't think I'm at that stage yet, because once I've tried those two colors from Daniel Smith, I was really intimidated by how they moved. I realize now that all of the brands that I have tried, even in looking at reviews, mostly behave in a very predictable manner, and the ones that I've tried are White Nights, the Mijello watercolors, and of course Sennelier. So I really think that I've unconsciously chosen colors that behave in very similar manners. So in a way that sort of paved the way for what my watercolor paintings look like. But in trying these two colors from Daniel Smith, it really opened my eyes to all the different possibilities that go with watercolors, and just all of the fun ways that you can play with them if you once you expand from even just the basic colors, which is where I normally would want to keep myself. But I think as soon as you go beyond keeping yourself within a brand, you might open up a lot of different possibilities with the textures and the movement and all those other fun stuff you get with watercolors as a medium. So the paper that I used for this painting is from SMLT Art, and I want to do a little review and sort of an updated one from when I first made that initial review. This now I think is my favorite watercolor paper, but I want to do a little disclaimer on that, and it's that I saw a message from Leia on Discord, and she sort of said how disappointed she was in the texture of the paper. She was expecting it to be just a little bit rougher, I think, in the way that most cold pressed professional cotton papers are. And so I want to put it out there that if you're used to those kinds of watercolor papers, this may be a little bit different from that. So if you can get smaller samples, I think that would be best. But I just want to say that just because I say it's my favorite watercolor paper, that doesn't mean that that's the best out there. And that review is also very limited to all of the watercolor papers that I've tried. I haven't tried every single brand out there, but to my eyes and with all of the things that I look for in a watercolor paper, I think this one is perfect. I think the texture is just perfect for being rough enough that the watercolors react in a way that you would expect when you're working with pure cotton and cold pressed paper, but it also isn't as rough as other cotton papers that I've tried. Usually that process is just unpleasant to me, and especially the ones that I've tried the Bao Hong professional papers and Fabriano artistical papers. I just find it so unpleasant to sketch on those. They just eat away at my pencil, and it's very hard for me to work with them. So I just think that this paper is great for that. And I just wanted to talk more about this brand because I don't think they're talked about that often on YouTube, and so I think they deserve a little shout out. The brushes that I used for this painting are actually my softest, floppiest, and biggest ones. But then I also used my smallest ones for this painting. The bigger ones that I used are some of my mop brushes from See Art, and those are just so soft. But then I also used my silver black velvet brush for this, and I just want to say how disappointed I was in that because it just started shedding on this painting, and I think it's because I haven't used it in so long. Maybe I had damaged it in keeping it in its container, and also maybe I wasn't so careful in cleaning them because I sort of cleaned all of my brushes together a while ago, so it could be that, and keep that in mind. But I was just so disappointed in how it shed. Another one of my brushes also did the same thing, but I wasn't as disappointed in that because they weren't that expensive. So yeah, I felt more at home with my smallest brushes, and the ones that I use for this are my Sakura brushes. They don't even have their branding on them, but I love them so much. They keep their shape, and they also keep a very fine point, so that's all I need in a detail brush, and it really delivers. I also think that it was so satisfying to use them in this painting because usually I use them for the tiniest details, and that is when I think the full painting really comes together. Another thing to keep in mind though, usually when I'm using those small brushes on a very rough paper, it would be kind of hard to get the details on them unless I work with very loose paint. So that was one other advantage to this paper, and that the smaller brushes just worked so well on top of its texture. when I was editing the full walkthrough for this on Patreon, it just felt so long, and just the painting process without not including the prep stage and the sketching stage, the full edited process ended up being 2.5 hours, which is a lot longer than my other walkthroughs with watercolors. So that being said, I was really surprised by how easy it was to edit this for YouTube, and I think that has something to do with how thin the layers were that I was working with. And in a full walkthrough, you see these thin layers, all of these glazings that I put sort of impact the whole look, and especially in the skin tone. There were so many times where I would work on one area of her face and then go over it with very thin layers until I got it to the point where her skin is in the exact look that I wanted. And when I was editing this, every time it would dry and I would start working on another area, when I went back, I couldn't really... the differences between those small layers didn't really feel significant enough to show in a video like this. So I just think that that was very fascinating. And I also want to dedicate a video to what goes behind editing my own videos and just starting a channel in general. So that's going to be a while, but I've been writing down the kind of details that I want for a video like that and slowly building it up. I just think that it's really fun to talk about what goes behind these painting videos in general. So that is it for this one. Once again, if you guys want to see the full process, it will be on my Patreon and the link will be in the description. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you guys for watching and making it through the end, and I will be seeing you guys again soon.